It's another week of Sunday school and another week of learning and growing together. That's great. So I'm going to bring you up to speed on what's been happening and so you can remember what we've been doing. So if you can remember, we've been talking about the I belong and learning about how we belong in the story of God. And now we're learning about how we know and understand the greater picture and how it all comes together. So we talked about Abraham and how he was going to be a great nation. And now we moved forward to Joseph. And in Joseph, we've been all brought to Egypt, right? Joseph brought his dad and his brothers, and they're all living in Egypt. And then we move 400 years, and there's many of God's people, the Israelites, living in Egypt at this point. And now they're being treated unfairly. And so now we come to Moses. And we know Moses was asked by God to rescue his people. So we left off last week saying, will he do it? Will him and remember his brother Aaron, will they go and help release God's people from slavery in Egypt? And will Pharaoh let it happen? So in front of you on the table, if you're in the gym, you're going to find a bunch of these type of coloring sheets. There should be 3 of them all together. And there's probably another coloring sheet. But if you would like, we would like you to, hopefully they've been cut out. If you don't, take a minute to cut them out and have them ready in front of you. So what I've done is, if you have time, you can color them all. See, these ones are all colored, and glue some popsicle sticks to them. And you can use these to follow along in the story so that it's more interactive. There's also a couple other ones that have words on them. So what I'm going to challenge you guys to do, even if you haven't finished coloring them, have them cut out and have them all placed in front of you. And what I want you to do is I want you to put them in order as I'm telling you this story. And you're going to find out what the images all represent something, and you're going to figure it out as we go along. And I want you to see if you can get them in the correct order, just so that you can follow along. Then, every time Moses says, let my people go, you can hold this one up. Let my people go. And every time Pharaoh says, no, you can hold this one up. So this way you're following along with the story in a fun way. I'm going to read from Exodus 6, verses 28 and through 30, and then Exodus 7, 1 through 7. Now, when the Lord spoke to Moses in Egypt, he said to him, I am the Lord. Tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, everything I tell you. But Moses said to the Lord, since I speak with faltering lips, why would Pharaoh listen to me? Then the Lord said to Moses, see, I have made you like God to Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron will be your prophet. You are to say everything I command you, and your brother Aaron is to tell Pharaoh to let the Israelites go out of this country. But I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and though I multiply my miraculous signs and wonders in Egypt, he will not listen to you. Then I will lay my hand on Egypt, and with mighty acts of judgment I will bring out my divisions, my people, the Israelites, and the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord when I stretch out my hand against Egypt and bring the Israelites out of it. Moses and Aaron did just as the Lord commanded them. Moses was 80 years old and Aaron 83 when they spoke to Pharaoh. Moses and Aaron set out to talk to Pharaoh, and they said, let my people go. What do you think Pharaoh said? No. So God told Moses and Aaron to go to the Nile where the water was, and he struck it with his staff, and it immediately turned to blood. They couldn't drink the water anymore. The Nile River was now blood. God instructed Moses and Aaron to go back to Pharaoh and tell him to let my people go. And he warned them, if you don't, there will be frogs everywhere. Pharaoh said no. So guess what happened? Frogs came, and they were everywhere. In your house, in your bed, in your food, in the fridge, if they had fridge back then. No, they didn't have fridge. But they were everywhere, and it was gross. No matter where they went, there was frogs. So Pharaoh said, please take them away, and your people can go. So God took the frogs away. But as soon as the frogs were gone, Pharaoh changed his mind and said, no, they can't go. God then instructed Aaron, stretch out your staff and strike the dust on the ground, and there will be thousands and swarms of gnats. Oh, they're like lice, and they went everywhere on every people. There was gnats everywhere, bugging every single person you can think of in that place. But still, Pharaoh said, no, they can't go. It was at this point that God said that he would make a distinction or a separation between the Egyptians who were with Pharaoh and the Israelites, or God's people, and that whatever happened from this point on would only happen to the Egyptians and would not happen to the Israelites. So God sent swarms of flies, and they were everywhere, and they were on people, and they were just driving them crazy. But it was only on the Egyptians. It wasn't affecting the Israelites. So Pharaoh was going crazy because there was just flies all over the place that he had to hit and kill and get rid of. And they were in his soup, and they were in his coffee. They were everywhere. And so at that point, Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, let my people go. And he said, I will let you people go only if you take away these pesky flies. So guess what? God took the flies away. And then Pharaoh said, no, I changed my mind. No, they can't go. Once again, God sent Moses and Aaron to go to Pharaoh and tell him, let my people go. Now Pharaoh's heart was still hardened, and he said, no. And because he said no, God sent a plague on all the livestock of the Egyptians, but not to any of the Israelites. So all the animals, all the cows, like moo moo, all got injured and they died. But none of the Israelites' animals died. But still, despite the fact that all these livestock passed away and died, Pharaoh's heart was still hardened, and he said no. So then God told Moses and Aaron, he told Aaron, pick up the soot off the ground, and when you go to Pharaoh, I want you to throw it up in the air. And the soot fell down, and all the men and women broke out in festering boils and painful hurts all over their bodies. It was awful, and they were suffering. And Moses went to Pharaoh again and said, let my people go. And he was covered in sores and painful, but yet his heart was still hardened. And he said, no. Because Pharaoh wouldn't listen again, God sent yet another plague. And this time it was hail. Large pieces of hail and thunder and rain, and so much of it. It destroyed everything, and anything that was outside, any cattle, any livestock, got killed by it because they were so big. And Pharaoh was so distraught to see the destruction that when they asked him, will you let my people go? He said, yes, as long as you promise to make the hail stop. So after they prayed to God, the hail stopped. But Pharaoh hardened his heart again and said, no, I changed my mind. No, they cannot leave. Yet again, God sent Moses and Aaron to Pharaoh to tell him, let my people go. And believe it or not, yet once again, Pharaoh said no. So God sent swarms of locusts, gross, creepy creatures that crawled everywhere and in everything and affected all the Egyptians. And Pharaoh said, make it stop. I have sinned. I'm a horrible person. I will let your people go if you just take them away. So God sent a strong wind and blew all the locusts away. But as soon as they were gone, God hardened his heart again, and Pharaoh said, I changed my mind. Nope, not happening. So God instructed Moses to stretch out his hand over the sky so that darkness would spread all over Egypt. Darkness that could even be felt. and it covered all of Egypt for 3 days. No one could see a thing, except the Israelites. They could see just fine. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and said, "Go, take everything, but leave your livestock." But Moses said, "You must allow us to take everything." But then the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he said, "No." Finally, Moses warned Pharaoh, "Obey God, or he will have you sent the worst thing of all to you." But Pharaoh just laughed. So God said, "The oldest boy in each family of Egypt must die, but my people will be safe." And he told them how that he would be sure that they would be safe. He told them to take a lamb and kill it and put some of its blood on their door frames. And when God passes over your house, he will see the blood from the lamb, and he will know that the lamb died instead of your son. So that night it was just as God had said. Suddenly there was piercing, echoing sounds of screams and crying and horrible sounds as God passed over the families and found their firstborns dead. At last Pharaoh told God, "Get out! Just go! Please leave! Take everything and go! I have had enough! Go!" So they packed up and they left. And Pharaoh didn't change his mind. And they all left. Even though God's people didn't know the way, they were excited because they were free at last. And they were promised by God that he would lead them and he would be with them and he would bring them to a new promised great land and care for them and be with them. He led them in a pillar of a cloud, which they followed by day. And when it stopped, they stopped. And when it went, they went. And at night, it followed behind in a pillar of smoke or fire to light the way and can protect them. So God led his people through the desert. But then they came to the Great Sea. They were just curious, how do we get across that when, what's that I hear? I hear something behind me. They heard horses' hooves and shouting, and what? Pharaoh changed his mind and was coming to catch them again. They were trapped. Pharaoh was behind them and the sea was in front of them and there was nowhere to go. What would they do? How could they escape? God knew what he was doing, and he made the pillar of smoke move behind the people. He hid them from the view of the Egyptians. Then God sent Moses to raise his hands and a staff. And when he did, a great wind blew, and the waters began to split and created a pathway and a dry place. The fish were on one side and the other fish on the other side, and the dry ground through the middle, and the people could walk across. So they did. They walked across the dry land, and they all, every single one, animals, children, mummies, daddies, everything made it across the sea while the Egyptians were hidden back there. Well, of course, as soon as they got to the other side, the Egyptians also tried to get through, and they were running through and chasing them and trying to get through them, and the last Israelite made it through, and the waters crashed back in, and none of the Egyptians made it across. Well, what do you think the Israelites did? They rejoiced and praised God. God had saved them. He made a way and protected them, and he did it. God had made a way for the Israelites when there didn't seem to be a way, when it seemed impossible, when there was no way. And many years later, once again, God was going to make a way where there was no way. From the beginning, God's children have been running from him and hiding. And God knew his children could never be happy without him, but they couldn't get back to him by themselves. They were lost. They didn't know the way back. But God knew the way, and one day he would show them the way.